All right, we are going to go through the second set of notes for Chapter 9. So this is Chapter 9, Endocrine System, Part 2 notes. And I'm going to discuss the major endocrine glands as well as the hormones and their target effects. So this is the list of the major endocrine glands in the body, and besides the pineal gland, I guess in the thymus, I've tried to kind of put them in order going from superior to inferior in the body, and that might be a good way for you to visually represent it. So we have 3 of them in the brain. We've got the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the pineal gland. Going down to the throat, we have the thyroid, and then actually sitting on top of the thyroid, we have the parathyroid. In the chest, behind the sternum, we've got the thymus gland. In your abdomen, we've got the pancreas. Sitting in the posterior cavity of your body, on top of your kidneys, you have the adrenal gland. And then if you're male or female, you've got your gonads, which are either ovaries or testes. We do have some extra endocrine organs, and they're really kind of dealing with pregnancy. The placenta, which is an endocrine organ that's developed during embryological development, so that's an endocrine organ. And you were actually a little endocrine organ at one time, or an endocrine hormone producing substance, and you did it successfully because you were born. So endocrine glands are ductless glands. Well, what does that mean? Think about the alimentary canal or the digestive tract. There is a tube with like a hollow lumen all the way down. So there's a free surface or an open surface. Endocrine glands do not have like hollow tubes in them. They're actually secreting their substances via exocytosis, and then they're getting picked up and put into the bloodstream. Something like mucus is secreted to a free or apical surface into a lumen or into a cavity, but that's not happening with endocrine glands. They don't have ducts. Their products are made in the cell, and then again they're secreted via exocytosis, and they are picked up in the bloodstream and carried around into the body to go affect their target cells. All right, so we learned in Chapter 7 that the hypothalamus was part of the nervous system, a really important part of the nervous system, but it also connects and controls the endocrine system. It's kind of the puppet master of the endocrine system. It has 3 parts to it, and it makes up part of the diencephalon of the brain. So you've got, not 3 parts to the hypothalamus, excuse me, I'm saying it's part of the diencephalon. So what does it do? It controls the anterior pituitary, which is actually called the master gland of the body. It does produce 2 hormones of its own, which are oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, but literally it's so busy that it just produces these hormones, and then it actually gives it to its assistant to hang on to, and its assistant is the posterior pituitary. So I'm going to get a little cursor. I'm going to get a laser pointer here. All right, so here we have the brain. Here we're dealing with the diencephalon, okay? Here's the hypothalamus right here. And the pituitary gland kind of hangs off of the hypothalamus here and is branched into the anterior and posterior pituitary. So here we're looking at the hypothalamus, a little bit of a close up. And again, here's the hypothalamus right here with the pituitary hanging off. The pituitary has 2 different branches, the anterior and posterior. But this is what we're concerned with here. So the hypothalamus is both part of the nervous system and it's an endocrine gland because it produces hormones. The hormones, let me back up for a second, okay? The hormones that the hypothalamus produce are oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, okay? So the hypothalamus produces these 2 hormones, but again, it's so busy. It's like, here, posterior pituitary, take these hormones, you hang on to them, and you deal with their storage and release. Oxytocin is a hormone that is responsible for strong uterine contractions. So during pregnancy, when you get into later stages of pregnancy, you've got baby pushing down on the uterus that will end up stimulating oxytocin to be produced. Oxytocin causes uterine contractions. You get more pressure in the uterus and on the cervix. It's going to increase the amount of oxytocin that's produced. That's going to keep going, with a positive feedback mechanism. We talked about this in chapter 1 until birth is created. Oxytocin also is responsible for when women are breastfeeding, for their milk to kind of come down. Anybody who has milked a cow before might know that you have to clean off a cow's teats and squirt out a little bit of milk. What that's doing is that's actually causing oxytocin to be released for the milk to be let down for the cows. And oxytocin is also responsible for ejaculation in males. Antidiuretic hormone is responsible for decreasing the amount of urine that goes out in the body so that we retain more water. So if somebody who takes a diuretic pill is a diet pill, or not diet pill, excuse me, a water pill, and that would help them actually pee more. So an antidiuretic pill is against that, and it targets the kidney cells, which cause them to reabsorb more water. So basically, you actually can just have a slight increase in solute to water concentration in your blood or antidiuretic hormone to be produced. And then again, that targets the kidney cells and causes them to reabsorb more water to concentrate your urine so that you can increase the water content of your blood and thus decrease the solute versus solvent concentration. Think about something like alcohol, all right? Alcohol actually prevents the production of antidiuretic hormone. Why? Because you have a toxin in your body and your body wants to flush it out or excrete it out. So a consequence of consuming alcohol could be increased urine production as well as dehydration. All right, the anterior pituitary gland as a whole, excuse me. So the pituitary gland is broken up into two sections, the anterior and the posterior. The anterior is actually called the master gland. It has a huge job within the body. The posterior pituitary is like the purse for the hypothalamus. It just stores that antidiuretic hormone and oxytocin. Damage to the pituitary gland can be incredibly significant and cause death. So again, here's the hypothalamus up here, and then you have your two kind of branches of the pituitary, with anterior being in front, posterior being behind. So as I said, the anterior pituitary is known as the master gland. It produces 6 hormones. 2 of those hormones are actually going to go out and directly affect target cells. 4 of them, however, are tropic hormones, and I talked about this in the last video, that a tropic hormone is a hormone that prods another cell to produce more hormones, okay? All 6 of these hormones are protein hormones, meaning that they get into the cell via the second messenger system. So I'm going to go through the different hormones that are coming from the anterior pituitary. Growth hormone, which you might see as GH, is going to stimulate all cells in the body to grow, to develop, and to break down fat, and utilize that throughout the body. Growth hormone surges happen right before puberty, which actually will then stimulate the hypothalamus to produce a hormone called GnRH, which there's this whole big feedback mechanism that we'll talk about in class. Prolactin, which you will see as PRL, is known to target breast tissue, and it will stimulate milk production in postpartum mothers. And prolactin actually starts to be produced towards the end of gestation, or the time that a woman is pregnant. Prolactin is produced in men, but at this point they have no idea what it targets. All right, so here are our 4 tropic hormones that come from the anterior pituitary, and they have super fun names. Adrenocorticotropic hormone. So adrenocorticotropic hormone. Well, it's a tropic hormone, means that this hormone stimulates another gland to produce hormones. And let's look at the word part. Adrenocortico, adrenal cortex. This hormone stimulates the adrenal cortex to produce its hormones. Thyroid stimulating hormone. Well, that sounds pretty clear to me. It stimulates the thyroid gland to produce its 2 hormones. And then we have 2 different classes of what are called gonadotropic hormones. And again, it's a tropic hormone, meaning that it stimulates a gland to produce other hormones. Gonadotropic, gonad, it's going to stimulate the testes and the ovaries. We have 2. Both males and females produce these 2. We have follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone is responsible for developing eggs or ova in females and sperm production in males. Luteinizing hormone is actually triggering ovulation. That's when an egg is released from an ovary, and it stimulates testosterone production in men, which is needed for sperm production. The posterior pituitary. So the posterior pituitary, it does not produce any hormones of its own, but it stores the hormones that are produced by the hypothalamus and causes them to be released. And I've already talked about what oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone do. The thyroid gland. So that is in the throat. It's a kind of butterfly-shaped gland. It's responsible for producing two main hormones, thyroid hormone and calcitonin. And there's kind of two varieties of thyroid hormone, T3 or T4, and that has to do with how many iodine molecules are associated with them. So thyroid hormone affects all cells in our body, and it affects the rate in which our cells can metabolize glucose to break it down to make ATP. And you probably have heard of somebody having a hyperactive thyroid or a hypoactive thyroid. Hyperactive thyroid would cause somebody to not be able to gain weight, to might be jittery, sweaty. Hypoactive thyroid may have somebody gaining weight, feeling very sluggish or tired. A lot of cancers have been found in the thyroid gland, and it has to be taken out, but then somebody's going to have to get the supplemental medication to make up for those hormones that are not being produced in the body. Calcitonin is responsible for decreasing our blood calcium level. So when we consume something high in calcium and our blood calcium goes above homeostatic level, calcitonin will be produced from the thyroid gland, and it's going to stimulate those osteoblasts, those bone builder cells, to take that calcium and to build bony matrix. There's the thyroid gland in the throat. Parathyroid, so the medical word para means next to. Parathyroid gland are these anywhere from 4 to 8 little nodules of tissue that are actually attached to the thyroid gland. So if you lose your thyroid, you're also going to lose your parathyroid. It only produces one hormone, and that's parathyroid hormone. And this parathyroid hormone is kind of the antagonist of calcitonin. Calcitonin will decrease our blood calcium level. Parathyroid hormone is secreted when we have too low calcium, and it's going to stimulate the osteoclast, or the bone crusher cells, to break down bone to release calcium from the bony matrix into our bloodstream. So here's a close-up of the thyroid, and then in this picture we have 4 little nodules of parathyroid tissue. The adrenal gland. So this is that 2-for-1 special. So the medical term ad means on top of or above renal, and renal is kidney. So the adrenal glands, they are paired. They sit above the kidneys. However, even though we have 2 of them, they are actually broken into 2 layers. There's the outer layer, which is called the cortex, and the inner layer, which is called the medulla, and they have separate functions. The adrenal cortex is responsible for producing a number of steroid hormones, which are collectively called corticosteroids. The adrenal medulla, however, is stimulated by nervous tissue to end up producing epinephrine, which you probably have heard of, or norepinephrine, or another name for it is adrenaline, which will cause your body to, to be that sympathetic fight or flight nervous response. So here is the adrenal gland sitting on top of the kidneys, and again you have the outer area, which is the cortex, and the inner area, which is called the medulla. Here are 3 classes of adrenal cortex hormones. We have mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids, and sex hormones. So this would be most superficial, and then going deeper, the layers of the adrenal cortex and what they produce. Mineralocorticoids are mostly dealing with water and electrolyte balance in the body, and they often target the kidney. An example of a very common mineralocorticoid is aldosterone, and aldosterone is going to actually cause us to reabsorb more sodium. When we reabsorb more sodium, we're actually going to reabsorb more salt, or more water as well, because the rule is water follows salt. Glucocorticoids are helping us deal with prolonged stressors, and they will increase the amount of glucose that is in our bloodstream. So somebody who is dealing with prolonged stress might have a higher blood glucose level, which, if that again is a prolonged thing, could end up leading to something like insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Sex hormones, they're mainly androgens and estrogens that are produced in the most inner layer of the adrenal cortex, and both males and females are producing these. The adrenal medulla is responsible for producing two hormones, which are epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are doing the